All right, everybody, welcome to the show. This is it, TruthWire. It's here. It's Monday. God, I got so much stuff going on, but I couldn't wait to do this show, really, to tell you the truth. There's so many things going in, the craziness, the madness. I am, of course, your host, Craig Pasta Jardula. My co-host, Fiorella Isabel, is on the ground, boots on the ground in Belarus. They just had an election there yesterday. As you heard, Lukashenko won again. He's one of the longest actual tenured ruler, leader, president, whatever you want to call him nowadays. You know, we titled our show Trump the Emperor. Over here keeps his promises. And, you know, I don't want to say that Trump's just an emperor by what he's doing. It's the way he's praised by his siblings, his folk, his common law. But anyways, Fiorella will be there. So today we have our other co-host, and you know him, ladies and gentlemen. You love him. Matt Weinglass from the Homeless Left is here. I'm going to call him Meal Ticket Matt because, you know, Matt, you got a lot of responsibilities on your plate. There's people out there waiting for a meal ticket. So when you're done over here, you better get your ass going and get to work. People are dependent on you.
Oh, they certainly are. And Hollywood has been in a standstill for recently a lot of stuff happening here. So we cover that on the show on Homeless Left. As you know, you come on our show a lot, Craig. We appreciate your feedback on LA. You have personal experience here as well. But yes, it's true. A lot of people are counting on something to happen because I think the town's falling apart, but the world is falling apart. So what are we even talking about entertainment industry for when the entire world is on the brink of so much catastrophe right now? But that's why I appreciate the TruthWire show having me on. We can discuss the more macro stuff happening in parts of the world that a lot of people don't even know about is going on right here in the States.
Well, you know, we got a lot of personal stuff going on, me and you, right? So we've been trying to juggle that there. So I want to thank everybody who joins in and everybody who shares the show. If you're on the TruthWire right now, I mean, it's ridiculous. It should show that channel used to get 1,000, 2,000 live streamers people watching at one time. So if you're there, if you're on Rumble, share the stream. If you're hanging out on Fiorella's Twitter, go on over to the Homeless Left. Go on over to TruthWire. Go over to Pasta to Go. All our shows, all our outlets, guys. We're just getting warmed up. I should say it like we're just getting warmed up. That's Al Pacino's character in Scent of a Woman. Are you finished? No, I'm just getting warmed up, Matt. We got a lot of stuff going on, and I mean, wow, there is no shortage of news out there. We got some things to talk about, and of course, we're going to probably get ourselves in trouble. You're looking at, when he says Homeless Left, when we talk about TruthWire, we talk about the Convo couch, we talk about Fiorella, Matt Weinglass, Pasta Jardula. I want to leave Jayme CheeseSlice out there. He's behind the scenes pressing buttons and, you know, hitting things. But these are the people, right? You know, we don't play team sports, guys. It's one of the big things. Just like our old friends, Steve Poikonen over AM Wake Up, his whole crew, his Independent Media Alliance, Derek Bros, The Last American Vagabond, even Whitney's part of that whole crew. Corbett's part of that whole crew. I mean, these are the people who are really getting censored because we refuse to play this left-right paradigm, this Democrat-Republicans. And I mean, I can't believe some people are doing it. Matt, to start off the kind of show, you know, we always have this little scuttlebutt in the beginning, but these people who are owning the left, who are making like, first of all, I didn't really even make a comment about the whole Elon Musk thing, right? But then the people, leftists who are like kind of going after AOC and stuff, and still it's like what are you doing? There's so much stuff going on. Are we just going to forget or just pretend that Donald Trump on his second day ushered in Larry Ellison and Sam Altman? He ushered in the AI generation. The security state is coming. You're talking about a guy from Oracle, Matt, that wants to push freaking AI vaccines, mRNA vaccines, like little freaking things from the what's that movie? The stupid movie we always talk. It's a great movie with Keanu Reeves and
The Matrix. Yeah,
The Matrix. There are little things in the Matrix swimming around your body. You know what I'm saying? I mean,
I was actually thinking about Minority Report the other day because Larry Ellison's talking about like this preemptive. You remember the whole pre-crime unit?
Oh,
this
yeah.
is like pre-health unit or pre-cancer unit or pre anything you're gonna do. AI is gonna figure it out first and stop it before it happens. I was like, this is dystopian future. This is Spielberg told us this in Minority Report. And by the way, in those movies, we're supposed to be cheering for the little guy. We're supposed to be cheering for the guy that's like trying to fight the system. And for some reason, audiences go in droves, cheer on the little guy in a movie, and then in real life, they cheer on the corporation, they cheer on the company, and they say, screw the little guy. It's baffling to me how we do that reverse, going from the movie theater to real life. And we're like, no, you're supposed to be cheering for the little guy fighting this crap. But
well, you know, those movies, they have a good way of pointing America's adversaries as enemies in those movies too, as well, right? You know, like Rambo 3, you know, Sylvester Stallone got me to root for the Mujahideen.
Yeah.
I'll never forget about that.
Yeah.
I'm taking that to my grave on that one. So yeah, everybody's paying attention to AOC. Everybody's paying attention to they're really uber. Matt, I want to point something out here. I don't blame Donald Trump as much anymore as I used to. I don't blame the people behind him, the mechanism behind him, the deep state, the establishment. I blame the people. The people are going along with this. Now, I get that a lot of the numbers we're seeing on Twitter and all these other places on social media are hogwash. They're controlled. It's a controlled environment. Certain numbers are lifted. Certain numbers are put down. That's called narrative management. That's what they want. But a lot of people I know and I see, you know, they're still talking as if like migrants are the issue. Like, oh, once we round up all these migrants and get rid of them, everything's going to be okay, Matt. You know, the munchkins are going to come out singing ding dong, the witch is dead, right? You know what I'm saying? And really, to tell you the truth, people are still refusing to acknowledge the fact that a genocide, real ethnic cleansing is going on, and they're okay with Donald Trump and this kind of let's clean it up, let's get people out of the way, and let's get beachfront properties, baby. Where should we stick the Palestinians? They're going back to northern Gaza, Mr. Matt. Let's stick them in Jordan and Egypt. Your thoughts on that before we break into Caitlin Johnstone's article?
I mean, we knew this was coming. We knew that this probably was part of this deal, this fast track. Let's get this ceasefire going. And we knew there was enough MAGA supporters that were going to fall for this, and not just fall for it, but like you're saying, you're kind of alluding to,
Cheering
Craig,
on.
championing it, saying this is what real leadership looks like. You know, the art of the deal, go in there strong. Biden and Harris didn't know what they were doing. With like, and then like the idea is that we forget the fact that the administration that just left, the 4 years that they ran this crap, they're the ones who funded this genocide. So this idea that Trump was going to be the guy to come in and clean things up, he's doing exactly as was scheduled. So we saw this coming, and I just hope there's enough Mahas, as we call them, or the ones that got on board to help Trump get in office, enough of them that aren't these Zionist lunatics to say, wait a minute, this doesn't look right. And so we hope there's more of them speaking out at this point. Whereas the vote blue no matter who people, they're you know, we don't have any hope for them. They just think, oh my God, all of a sudden these horrible thing is happening. It's like, oh really? All of a sudden you voted for the guy who funded this thing. So yeah, it's pretty scattered. It's pretty wild right now. But you called this, Craig. You called this from the beginning. This was the plan, and he's following it like precisionally. He's following it on schedule.
You know, I don't know if we talked about it last week there, Mr. Weinglass, but, you know, I remember mentioning all the time that, you know, a lot of people, first of all, it's been 24 hours since he's been president. I thought he was going to end the Ukraine war. There was already a deal put in place before Donald Trump even got there. This is all like, once again, you're watching theater, ladies and gentlemen. This stuff has been planned for years and years and years. And the deep state, or I don't want to say the deep state, but the oligarchs or the ruling class, the globalists, they recruit their characters to play their roles. It's like, what do you call that when you go for auditions? Central casting. So they got like, the oligarchs got central casting. It's like, hey, what do you think about Donald Trump? I don't know. Do you think he can pull it off? Well, he's been really improving in the WWE. You know, they're going to put him in the Hall of Fame. I think he can pull this off. And the way the people in America are so dumbed down, right? They really are. I mean, they just believe this stuff. I mean, I still don't understand how they're going along with this. Let's go and take a look at this. But what I was going to say is, I don't know, and if we covered it last week about the bombs, Donald Trump, he sent weaponry to the Ukraine, the Kiev regime, that even Obama said, yeah, we shouldn't send those things. That's putting those in the hands of Nazis. That might backfire. And I was saying, well, his lawyers around him and everything, they said, no. Donald Trump got in, give it to them. Well, now he's sending 2,000-pound bombs over to Israel that even Biden was holding back. Remember we talked about Pegasus? Even Biden's lawyers going, hey, man, this is a real shitting and pissing on the civil liberties over here if we allow this spyware to go out there, let alone give the FBI permission to use it, you know, coming from this Israeli spyware company. Maybe we should put sanctions on it. Lifted. It's gone, ladies and gentlemen. They can now use that spyware, which gets into your phone. It gets the history of your phone. It can listen to you when it's not even on. It's evil. Judge Napolitano wrote an article on it. Go look about it. Pegasus, Napolitano. Donald Trump is doing what he's doing. I mean, he's got this kind of neocon authoritarian win. My bombs are bigger, little man. He's got that mentality. So have at it. And the AI coming in and your Fourth Amendment rights, they're being pissed and shit on. Let's get to Caitlin Johnstone's article over here. Her tweet, she put it in an article. You can get it on her newsletter. Just the same. Let's bring it on up. Trump reveals plan for ethnic cleansing of Gaza. Well, that didn't take long. President Trump has said he wants to clean out Gaza and relocate its population to U.S. client states like Egypt and Jordan, which would, of course, be a textbook case of ethnic cleansing. It would also align perfectly with long-standing Israel agendas to remove Palestinians from their homeland so that their territory can be seized and settled by Zionists. She put Jews, I just said Zionists, to be proper, right? Because we always hear that. Don't be anti-Semitic, Matt. But, I mean, I think there was, once again, a lot of the people who are going to occupy the space, like a lot of people in Israel who occupy those spaces, I really wouldn't call them Zionists because they're really just aloof to what's going on. Yeah. They're just, it's what they're told. They go to Sunday school, what do you call that? Hebrew school on Sundays, which is little Zionist and training school. So what they think what they're doing is all about justification because of their religion, because of their ethnicity, and they think it's okay. But I want to stay on this first sentence right here and get your thoughts, because he said it. Like we talked about his son-in-law, right? Kushner talking about, oh, we can get beachfront properties up there. But look at the Palestinians. They're marching back into Gaza. They say no. They're going to dig their heels in. I don't think they're going to leave that early. And I don't know what Hamas is doing right now underground, if they're getting ready for what's going on. There has been a prisoner exchange. They got their shots, their pictures, their highlights of the game. And I mean, Matt, another thing, how one-sided the mainstream media is. It's all about these prisoners coming home, right, to Israel from Hamas. And there's like under 30 of them. Meanwhile, you hear that, well, Israel released like 1,000 prisoners, right? So what side really has the fucking prisoners? It's just ridiculous.
Well,
so
yeah.
Your thoughts on that first sentence right there about everything that's going on? We already called it, and now he's actually putting it into motion. He's trying to. He's signaling. Your thoughts?
Yeah, no. This is. We knew this part was going to happen too. The positioning of even CNN. We saw the report where they're like saying this is really this is really callous of Trump to be so disheartening about this. The Palestinian people, they've been through so much. And we're like, well, you guys have been championing this the whole time. Now you care. Now you're like concerned. Okay, well, this is textbook ethnic cleansing. Johnstone is absolutely right about this. And how can Trump supporters be okay with this? And I think it's because of they know that his terminology is gonna sell well. It's this idea of, oh, it's such a disaster zone. It's a horrible thing. We care about them. We want to get them to a nicer place. Let's just make a deal. Let's make that deal, right? Art of the deal. We're gonna Egypt's gonna be open arms. No, they're not. They're gonna be pressured into this. Egypt's gonna have no choice. This is like, and I think if we followed the weapons, we understood, Craig, that there were certain exceptions to cutting off the weapons, the funding in foreign countries, and Egypt was one of those. It was Israel. It was Egypt. We were looking at Ukraine as one of them. I think it was unclear whether he was cutting that off or not. But we know Israel and Egypt were the two that were going to continue getting funding. So Egypt is in a position where they have to take this, or they're going to go into a civil war. They're going to go into a panic. It's going to be a bloodbath there. That's their only choice. So I'm afraid this is actually going to go through. And again, Trump puts the language out there like we're just looking out for these poor people that are in this horrible position. We're going to take care of them. But it's absolutely ethnic cleansing. There's no doubt about it.
Yep. I mean, you hit it on the nose. I want to stick with you 1 second and ask you a question, because I know you have a lot of experiences. Like, you're still in California, so you know those people. You are a Nazi for voting for Jill Stein, by the way. I want to remind everybody of that every single time we see Matt's face. He's a Nazi. How dare you do that? It's so crazy. Jill Stein, who was against the genocide, Joe Biden, who funded a genocide, and you're the Nazi. But
Yes.
What are your thoughts on when you see the left, the hypocritical left? Because listen, I always believe that the fourth estate, I say that like that, the fourth estate. I know Fred Edwards would get mad at me because Fiorella says it that way, but the fourth estate is there to keep power in check, right? That's freedom of the press. It's there to hold the government in power. Now, obviously, I think that we have a fascist government, and it's controlled by donors, and those donors are controlled by mega oligarchs who are hiding behind the scenes, right? With that being said, we do have to make sure that we do touch up on the left, because the left now comes in and they take up all the oxygen in the room with their weak ass criticisms. The criticisms are not, they're very sophomoric, right? They're very myopic. Whereas on this show, and this is why we get censored all the time and shut down, and our numbers are going backwards on Twitter and on followers again, is because we give an actual nuanced kind of criticism. I mean, there's a lot of people who do this out here. There's a small group of us. But what are your thoughts on the left, the way they're starting to speak stuff, the Joe Biden supporters, the Democrats, when you see them on TV? I know you probably don't watch mainstream media as much as I do, and I only do it so I can throw Rotten Tomatoes at it. But what's your thoughts on the left now, all of a sudden, criticizing Donald Trump? And then I want to follow up to why it was still not okay to vote for Donald Trump. But the left's criticism of what's going on in Gaza today. Your thoughts, Matt?
I mean, this is
the American left, by the way.
The American left. They're okay. We know they've been captured. We know that they were trying to do the right thing when they checked that box for Harris, and we tried so hard to to tell them this is you're supporting a genocide. You are by checking that box, you're championing the last 4 years of total war and destruction and the the upward transfer of wealth, the warmongers in Ukraine, all of it. We told them you cannot be part of this. They did it anyways. As you said earlier, we're Nazis. When I say we, the Jill Stein voters are Nazis for voting for Jill Stein, because a vote for Jill Stein is a vote for Trump. That's what they were told too. So they follow instructions. So now the instructions is when and what to be mad at Trump about, which we see them right in line. They completely fall in line, whatever CNN says. And a lot of them, they'll tell us. They tell us here, oh, we don't watch CNN. We don't watch that stuff. We're better than that. No, but you just get your garbage from your Facebook feed or whatever feed you're on, and it's just regurgitating what CNN just reported anyways. So you're getting that soundbite, and it's telling you when to be mad at Trump and what to be mad about. And this is perfectly aligned now. As I said earlier, CNN now spins this story as Trump's the maniac coming in doing this. And they're like, oh my God, this is exactly why we wanted to vote against this guy. Don't you guys see? It's like, you guys haven't been paying attention. We've tried so hard to walk you through this. And even like a title like the show today, we see Emperor Trump. That might get their attention. They might be clicking and watching for the first time, going, oh, let's see what these guys have to say. Oh, are they finally ready to admit Trump is a rapist and a felon? No, we're not talking about Trump being a rapist and a felon, you morons. And I hate to be so mean to these people, but we're telling you guys what's actually happening. We've been telling you the whole time, and you're not paying attention. And you even today, you want to believe it's the problem is Elon Musk is a Nazi and Trump is, oh, look at him trying to do this horrible thing when Biden and Harris really care about Palestinians. So I don't know if they're a lost cause at all. Craig, maybe just getting them to watch our critique of Trump, maybe that'll at least get their attention for a few moments. And they can go, okay, maybe there's something a little more going on here. I don't know, but we've been trying for years with these people, and they're hopeless. A lot of them are hopeless as far as I'm concerned.
Well, the reason why is obviously they're brainwashed. They're built upon emotions. Like I said, it's myopic. It's just on the level, they don't go deep. And I think the reason why I think it's important to go deeper, when you say that Trump's a rapist or a convicted felon, and that's what you're concentrating on him. You're not concentrating on the power mechanism above them. And therefore, that when your side commits the same atrocities, like what's going on in Gaza, as the Donald Trump side does, you ignore it because you were so focused on Donald Trump. It really is small-minded in some ways, and I get how a lot of people out there are consumed, but the people in Hollywood and LA that do this, they're just like, they need to grow up, and they need to read a little bit more, and they need to go into things and take a look at things. And, the reason why they never attack Donald Trump in a nuanced type of manner, meaning the Congress, Nancy Pelosi, and all the courts, is because they're guilty of the same crimes. If there was an area that you can really go after Donald Trump when he was running the first time, it was emoluments, right? Like when he did that after his first campaign, his first presidency, he was definitely doing deals, and you can see, but they wouldn't do that themselves. Why? Because they're guilty of the same crimes. That's why it's very important not to just concentrate on the person, but the whole power structure as a whole. And I think it is a lot of the reasons why they do this, Matt, is they're built upon emotions, right? Very reactionary. So therefore, they look for confirmation bias. And with the mainstream media being controlled by the ruling class and our voices getting drowned out, they get plenty of that fed to them to confirm those biases. Let's go back to the article and finish this up, because this is some intriguing stuff. Go ahead, Matt, if you can put it up there, Mr. CheeseSlice. Speaking with the press. Am I over here? Speaking with the press on board Air Force One on Saturday, Trump said he talked to Jordan's King Abdullah II about taking a large number of Palestinians from Gaza, and said he plans to speak with Egypt's President Sisi about doing the same. I'd like Egypt to take people, and I'd like Jordan to take people. Trump told reporters, saying the Gaza Strip is a real mess. It's a real mess. It's a real mess, and literally a demolition site. Yeah, and you continue to fund it and give them more bombs to blow people up. You're talking about probably 1.5 million people, and we just clean out the whole thing, Trump said. The president said that this new management could be either temporary or long-term. I'm going to stop right there, too, as well. All these things they do temporary, they say, always end up long-term, right? Like Israel march close to Damascus and say, oh, it's only temporary. They ain't leaving, Matt. They ain't leaving, so it can't be done temporarily, because once they say they're doing it temporarily, it turns out to be long time. In other words, once they left, they said the shit in 1945 was going to be temporary, and they didn't. People started leaving their house, leaving their land, and never, ever, ever went back.
Come
Go
on
ahead,
now.
you
We know it's 2 weeks to slow the curve. Come on, Craig. We're all in this together. We're all in this together, my friend. We can do this, right? We can do this. No, of course it's not. Of course it's long term. It's more than long term. It's that's it. It's final. It's finite. That's it. It's done. When you invest this type of finances and resources into rebuilding, who you think that's going to be for the Palestinians? Hell no. This is the real estate idea. This is what you're talking about, Kushner's idea. This is about Trump goes on and talks about what a great area this is, and I'm surprised he didn't mention the oil in northern Gaza, because that's what
out there,
really
the gas out there too, right?
Yeah. So there's so much money to be made, so much real estate opportunity here. Why would they bring back the Palestinians? That's the last thing. I mean, I don't think anybody would really bet on that. But this, short term, long term, we'll see how it goes. We know what the plan is.
Somebody said Trump probably thinks that Sisi owns a pizza chain, right? And I started a comment, Jayme. We'll get to it in a second, about the people in Jordan with the monarchy there and the people in Egypt. Remember, Egypt, Sisi is a military dictatorship, right? They had the Brother Motherhood, and they won the election, and then it was co-opt, the whole revolution of sorts. They came in. There was a lot of young people who were pushing for change and reform in Egypt that were not part of the Muslim Brotherhood, and they kind of got co-opted that whole thing, and they took it over. They co-opted that revolution, and then Sisi came in, and I think that's why people kind of stayed at bay and never overturned and stuff. But it's a very interesting situation, and it says in this article here, but one would have to be extremely naive to believe that either Israel or Washington plan on emptying out Gaza of its inconvenient population, rebuilding it, and then bringing them all back to shiny new homes. Israel has a very extensive history of grabbing land from the Palestinians and refusing to give it back, which is why there are so-called refugee camps for displaced Palestinians that are as old as the state of Israel itself. Just 5 days into his second term as president, Trump left no doubt about what his intentions are for Gaza. Joe Lauria wrote for Consortium News on Trump's comments, adding he tried to present what he was saying as a humanitarian concern. I'm concerned about the people, Maddie, these poor Palestinians. But only the most ill-informed person about Gaza would not see that he is talking about committing the crime and forcibly relocating a population. We will stop there for a while. I mean, wait, let's go to the next sentence, because we've been talking about Trump supporters, right? Trump supporters will no doubt defend his stated plans as a compassionate effort to rescue Palestinians from unfortunate circumstances, because Trump supporters are chowder-brained bootlickers who would define literally anything that their president did. True or false on that, Matt?
That's true. She's 100% right on that. And these CNN and these mainstream assholes, they're the ones who are responsible for allowing this garbage to continue. This narrative. This is all theater. When you're now pretending that you care. You now pretending. I can't even believe this. You mentioned she mentions the refugee camps, and I was thinking about what you said earlier about the prisoners versus the hostages, and like the language that they've been using. It's been tricking people, and they deliberately take the historical context out of it. And I remember like the first time I saw CNN have a human moment, it was like Wolf Blitzer had a look on his face when he brought on, and this was right after October 7th. It was like a couple months later where they did this massive bombing of this refugee camp. And like, to even understand, why is there even a refugee camp in Gaza to begin with? Well, we know, because it's been, as Caitlin Johnstone points out, they've been there as long as the state of Israel's been there. And he's like, oh, you were targeting a Hamas person, and the IDF general, whoever, was on CNN and says, oh yeah, we had one guy we were targeting. Well, did you know, was he there? He's like, oh no, we don't know if he was there. So you just blew up an entire refugee camp, and you don't even know if the one guy you were going for was even there. He's like, that's right, but we had to take it out anyways. And Wolf Blitz was like, oh, really? That doesn't seem right. And I was like, yes, that doesn't seem right, Wolf. Are you going to do anything about it? No, right back to the narrative. But that's the kind of stuff that allows for people to get the wrong impression of what's happening because they don't have the historical context, and that's on purpose. So as much as Caitlin Jones right about bashing these Trump people, I also still have empathy for them a little bit because I understand that they are brainwashed and captured by something far more nefarious that's controlling the narrative. And so I'm still way more pissed off at the media for allowing this to happen.
The media is one thing, but and also too, really, this is something that I think David Icke and a lot of other people, Derek Bros, have been talking about. That the independent media, they're calling it the alternative mainstream media at this point. They share the same thoughts, the same sentiment, the same arguments. And this is why, like when they had Rescue the Republicans, you know what I'm saying? Like all these people were trying to make Israel a third rail. They weren't talking about it. No, this is the most important thing we need to talk about. This is ethnic cleansing happening in front of our very own eyes. We have, by the way, at the end, Jayme, I forgot to tell you, and take your time and get ready. We have the James Lee interview we're going to put up about what TikTok, the ban, was all about. And actually some roots to that story because it all started really with the ADL, once again saying that TikTok was acting in a very anti-Semitic way, and then it spun from one thing of another to get rid of it. But, all these people on the synthetic right, on the populist right, just not wanting to talk about these things, to hide this, to act like it's a third rail. Well, you can't have everything. You're not going to agree on everything. No, this is a red line. If you were okay with genocide, and this is my argument why, and I understand, like right now, a lot of people are celebrating the release of Ross Ulbricht. Well, was it enough to continue the genocide? And there's some of those people who were part of pushing to get Donald Trump to free Ross Ulbricht. Also, making comments of tweets winning and acting like, like what Donald Trump is doing, is it okay? Like this is a positive thing. Like this is the lesser of two evils. No. The Zionist and BlackRock are still in charge. Guess who was in charge last time? The Zionist and BlackRock. You can't allow this to happen. You have to call it out for what it is. This is a red line in the sand, and it's disgusting the way people are going along with this. And you're right. Caitlin Johnston was right. It was so funny, Matt, because my thoughts were ahead of the article, right? Like I started talking, then we start reading the article. Oh, sorry, Caitlin, didn't mean to step on your thoughts there and stuff. But she laid it out beautifully because we've seen this before. This should be basic for us. Israel takes land. They do things temporary. Temporarily doesn't mean temporary. It means they're going to keep it for good. Plain and simple, Matt.
Yeah, 100%. But yeah, you called it the whole time, Craig. So I got to give you props for that. And your audience, our audiences are smart and they know. We all know. We're just seeing this happening in real time. It's disheartening. It makes we get very emotional about it because we just can't believe it's happening, even though we knew this was going to happen. So, could I ask you, do you think this is that Egypt, Jordan, are they going to, is this a done deal? Or are they going to rise up and fight back against this? What do you think?
Well, I know they've already taken a lot of Palestinians as is, right? I think we should probably go to the next spot.
Sure.
She's trying to call me on WhatsApp. So I don't know if she's been able to get in, but let's bring the next stuff up with Vanessa Beeley and Matt Ho, and I've had my differences with Matt Ho, in the past, nothing really serious, but he does make a good point here. Let's go to his comment first, and then we'll go to whatchamacallits. Let me just text Fiorella real quick. Do you want to read Matt Ho's comment for me so I can just text her real quick? Because she's trying to get connected to us.
Sure. He says, anyone think it's a coincidence Egypt, along with Israel, was the only country to have foreign aid continued? Anyone think it's far-fetched for taking Palestinians in, i.e. participating in Israel's ethnic cleansing, to be the transaction to get Jordans turned back on? If people are wondering what the deal Witkoff made with Netanyahu was to get a hostage exchange for Trump to showcase at his inauguration, this might be a part of it. 100%.
Yeah, I mean, and there's so much, like I said, the things that were lifted, there were sanctions that were lifted. It was just a pause. It's always a pause. It's never, ever a real ceasefire because Israel never ceases to fire. They're going to stop for a little while and they're going to start back in. They've been doing it since 1945, 1946. Egypt long-term has no choice, and this is true because Egypt is one of the top 3 recipients of weapons every year alongside of Israel, right? They're pretty much our puppet. Except they has no choice, accept refugees or be internally destabilized. Those threats have already been made. Egypt is not a sovereign nation. It's largely owned by Israel, Gulf states, IMF, EU, and the US. The alternative is a genuine popular uprising, but this will be bloody. And like I said, we talked about this whole revolution that they had years ago that was kind of then seized by the government. It was co-opted, I think, by the fanaticals, and that allowed the military to go in there and grab things. Everything was very much staged, and they took really the sovereignty away from the people of Egypt, who want change, who want, to control their own government, who don't necessarily want a military dictatorship controlling things. But that military dictatorship is completely controlled by the United States. So they do what they're told to do. I mean, we had this whole situation with the Grand Renaissance Dam in Ethiopia, which in fact they were using for their own benefit, for their own country, so they can have their own sources of power, but it's from the Nile downstream, and so many people in Egypt are dependent on the Nile. Well, the United States was offering them, more missiles, more planes, whatnot, to possibly blow it up. Because why? Well, they were kind of hinting at it, they never did. But why? Because it was funded and built by, guess who, Matt? The Chinese. So, I mean, there's always war games. There's always things going on behind the scenes. And listen, if you're not privy to it, I'm not an expert on it, but at least I know a decent amount about it to say, okay, let me look more. Just start diving in right now. Look at the relationship between the United States and Egypt. Look at Egypt and the relationship, what happened with Ethiopia and the Grand Renaissance Dam. Look who funded the Grand Renaissance Dam. I mean, everything is connected. It's like war games going on the inside, for the nuanced people. So you can't just look at things, why won't they take all these migrants in? I don't know. It's a good question. Maybe because they've taken somebody in before. And why should, at the end of the day, why should the Palestinians have to leave their homeland anyways, Matt?
Well, because they're not the chosen ones, Craig. I mean, come on. How are we gonna follow the greater Israel plan if they hang around? They're kind of in the way. So we got to do something about it. Hey, we don't want them to die. We just don't want them there. We got to get them out, make way for the people that really deserve the land, Yeah. It's so disgusting. People are okay with this. History, I hope history can catch up and tell the story correctly. And we're obviously on the right side. I remember Caitlin Johnston's been on this from the beginning. She from the beginning, she says, get on the right side of history right now. If you're for October 7th, if you have any doubt in your mind that something looks off here, just get on the right side, get on the side with the people and understand the Palestinians are the ones we need to champion. And that's what most of the world gets it. Most of the world have been in the streets for this the whole way. So I hope to continue seeing those protests happening globally throughout these next 4 years with Trump. I mean, even more so because we're the ones funding this crap. We're the ones doing this. I mean, we can't separate ourselves from this. It's our responsibility to wake up. The rest of the world is. I hope they get louder. I really do.
I hope so too, Matt. It's a crazy situation, but it's something that's been planned for quite some time. Israel has already colonized the majority of Palestine, so they need that space. They're running out of space. They're actually doing colonization projects inside the West Bank, and they need this land, and they're not going to stop. Why would they stop if nobody's going to stop them? In fact, they're going to be funded. And a lot of the monarchies and a lot of the other Gulf states are puppets of the United States. They'll do what they have to do to play well. They're just, rich people controlling over poor people. There should be uprisings everywhere, every single country, right? Like I'd sit back. I think Russia and China, they might sit back and go, "Oh, on a second, let's see. Looks like our government's doing at least better for the people than some of these other places." But man, who knows? And there's a lot of money in those Gulf states too, as well. So they have a lot of oil and a lot of people live a good quality of life. In Dubai, I heard it's ridiculous. So they're not going to push back at all. That's that. But that's Donald Trump doing. The emperor is doing what he's promised. And I refer to him in this segment, in this show today, as the emperor because the way the right, the populist right, independent journalists, the way they're treating him, these Tim Cass, these, Shapiro's, Ben Shapiro's, and it's nauseating what these people are doing, the Daily Wire. And then you see Rebel News running around Davos going and questioning these oligarchs, right? Like, they're getting Larry Finks there and whatnot. And they're still pretending like Donald Trump is the savior. What are you going to do against Donald Trump? They're still pushing and playing that narrative. And that's the big issue in front of us right now. I think anybody in the independent media, that's what they need to focus on, right? The fact that they're trying to make Donald Trump look like a legitimate outsider, right? Really quickly, before we take a quick break, and hopefully Fiorella will come on because she should be here any minute. She's saying her internet is giving her problems. She's trying to figure it out. I was just going to ask you a question about something, and I lost my chain of thought. There's a question here. I forgot it. It was something about Donald Trump. Anyway,
was it about him playing 60 chess? Because I think we're up to 60, or are we up to 70 yet? Are we 70 chess? I don't know. What is the excuse for this at this point? I hope, yeah. I think we're up to 60 at least.
All right, let's take a quick break. We're going to talk about Latin America because we'd said that if there's one area in which Donald Trump will definitely be worse than Joe Biden, it's going to be Latin America. Now we can write it down, both Latin America and Israel, because he is worse than what. And really, to tell you the truth, a lot of these times they're handing off the baton, right, from one administration to the other. That's all they're doing. They work together. There's certain things that the Democrats can get passed that the Republicans can't. There's certain things the Republicans can pass that the Democrats can't. And we're gonna get back. We're gonna talk about Colombia. Colombia caved in a certain way, as Friendly Brilliant put it out there. But it was interesting because Petro's excuse was, and we're going to talk about this in the next segment. We're going to take a quick break while I get some more coffee. What happened was they sent a plane of migrants to the United States in handcuffs from the United States to Colombia, and Petro Gustavo sent it back. It's like, you're not going to send them here as prisoners, and then sent the plane there to pick them up. But hearing the way the right, once again, the populist right talks about this, it's nauseating. The Benny Johnsons, the Nick Sorters, all these people I'm mentioning to you because you have to put them on your radar and understand that they're not genuine. If they're a cheerleader, they're not genuine, right? Ian Miles Chong is not genuine because he's a cheerleader. And you have to recognize all these people. And no, we're not jealous of these people. These people will never have to face suppression like we do. They get lifted and boosted because they're Elon's and the establishment's friends. We're going to take a quick 2-minute break. Jayme, get a good song. I'm going to get some coffee. We'll come right on back. I'm here with Matt Weinglass. This is the TruthWire. He's here from the homeless left. I also have pasta to go. We're waiting for Fiorella Isabel to come on in. Boots in the ground in Belarus. We're talking about Donald Trump, Latin America. We'll be right on back. See you in just a second. Hello, everybody. I am here, your host, Craig Pasta Jardula. This is the Truth Wire, where you get your truth. I'm here with, of course, my co-host for today, Matt Weinglass. We're waiting on Fiorella Isabel to come on in. She's boots on the ground in Belarus covering the election there. Lukashenko won another election. I think he's been in power since the 90s. But this is something that you'll see, Matt. I haven't seen it in Europe or Eastern Europe or Asia or those areas yet. I've been to Latin America, and I can tell you this much. There are a lot of people who trust strong leaders who stand up for their national sovereignty and just don't kowtail, to the EU or the West or any of their oligarchs or corporations who are trying to tell them how to run their country. So there's a lot of times you get people like Daniel Ortega in Nicaragua who get a lot of support. Nicolas Maduro, another one too, part of the Chavistas. As much as a lot of these people that will tell you that really don't understand how the election system works in Venezuela, and will try to tell you that he lost. No, it's not true. He won, and he won fair and square. So it's very interesting. But let's get into this right now. Donald Trump, Fiorella left a statement. We're going to have to maybe get into that after. I wanted her to come in and explain what's going on. But let's put up Donald Trump's statement itself. The emperor. Now let's go to Donald Trump's statement inside that box. It's okay. You didn't have to go away, honey. You could have stayed there with us. Click on that box. Hey, there we go. Make it nice and big. That's what she said. I was just informed that two how do you say repatriation? How do you say that?
Repatriation
flights. Wow, I was just informed that two repatriation flights from the United States, which large number of illegal criminals. I'm going to stop there 1 second right there. Okay, now when he's saying illegal criminals, is he's saying that these people entered illegally. That's their crime. But when he says these things, right, he wants to paint this picture that immigrants in this country are the major cause for crime. It's not true. Immigrants, even legal immigrants, can actually cause less crime than actual American citizens. You know, that's something that's just there. You know what I'm saying? They actually commit less crimes, and that's just the bottom line. But this is that argument. He's trying to sell you the what was it called from Cuba when they brought him over on the boats, the Marriott boat ride, when the argument was that Castro emptied his prisons and he put a bunch of people on. He took all the boat owners. He says, take them to Florida, get them out of here, right? And therefore they were ingested. We were ingested with Tony Montana, Scarface style. That's what he's trying to kind of paint that picture. Anyways, he says, with large number of illegal immigrants, illegal criminals, he calls them, were not allowed to land in Colombia. This order was given by Colombia's socialist president, Gustavo Petro. Notice how he slips in the socialist president. Evil, Matt, right? Who is already very unpopular amongst his people, which is another way to manufacture consent to justify doing things because this guy's unpopular. He really wasn't even elected. I bet you he'll talk shit about their elections sooner or later. Petro's denial of these flights has jeopardized the national security and public safety of the United States. And we do see right-wing, populist right, independent journalists actually giving credibility to these claims. So I have directed my administration to immediately take the following urgent and decisive retaliatory measures. Emergency tariffs, 25% on all goods coming into the United States. In 1 week, the tariffs will be raised to 50%. This is, you want to F around and find out? There, Gustavo Petro, you don't mess with the U.S. of A. A travel ban and immediate visa revocations on the Colombian government officials and all allies and supporters. So once again, they'll signal out allies and supporters of the Colombian government. Visa sanctions on all party members, family members, and supporters of the Colombian government. Enhanced customs and border protection inspections of all Colombian nationals and cargo on national security grounds. The IEEPA Treasury banking and financial sanctions to be fully imposed. Scroll it up, Jayme. These measures are just the beginning. We will not allow the Colombian government to violate its legal obligations with regards to the acceptance and return of criminals they forced into the United States. Matt, there are so many things that are going on when you read that article right there, when you read that statement. The socialist government, right? We're going to sanction them. You know what I'm saying? Man,
you're right, Craig. He's using the go-to verbiage that has gotten him this far. This is what got him in originally. We can go back to 2015. We know the famous escalator ride down the stairs and saying they're all criminals coming in. And they, you talk about any Latin American country, you can talk about Mexico, you talk about anything. The xenophobia is about the fear of the other. They are criminals. That's what got him this far. That's how he's in office again right now. With that, and then the socialist comment, that's also very important, like you said, to discredit the president of any country that we have a beef with, that's standing up to the American empire, the Western Empire, American imperialism, all that stuff. We know the history in all these other countries, Venezuela, we know this. And I do understand we have coups. We've attempted and gotten through a lot of them throughout these Latin American countries. We can talk about Chile. We can talk about Venezuela, the ones that were successful, the ones that weren't. But either way, the point is he's doing the thing that every president does. And he's even stronger at it than a lot of them. Like you mentioned, like Obama, even Biden, he's stronger about this verbiage. And so it really goes to show that you can fool the American people if you continue to demonize socialism and continue to demonize people, that you use the word criminal. So it's the language that works. As far as all these tariffs go, I guess by implementing more, doubling the tariffs, implementing all these other rules and penalties, it is enough to make them cave. And that's what he hopes to accomplish and probably did here.
Well, I drink Cafe Bustelo. I'm a big coffee drinker. And if I got to pay 3 times the price for a bag of Cafe Bustelo, I'd be really upset. You know what I'm saying? But I don't think I have to, because we're going to pull it up right now. First of all, let's go to Fiorella's statement. Let's bring her statement, because I was going to let her just explain it, but I don't think she's going to be able to get on. I guess she's not being able to get through with the reception where she's at. Breaking: Trump's actions against Latin America are predictable, but it makes them no less reprehensible. This isn't about illegal immigration. It's to show USA owns America, all of it, and increase division. This could be managed in efficient ways, as more people than ever are returning to their home countries, and many U.S. citizens are moving to Latin America. And Fiorella, rich how U.S. citizens like to go to Latin America to expend their U.S. dollars, but we don't offer the same to others and make illegal immigration hard and nearly impossible for the people of these countries. But if you're Ukrainian or European, come on in. It's very easy. I digress. Let's bring it up. It's gross seeing how many anti-imperialists justify Trump's actions because it's trendy to worship him and because of the amount of fear-mongering from the border crisis. Matt, I want to stay on that sentence really quickly. This is gross. It is gross to see a lot of lefties or anti-imperialists play into this whole situation. I'm in a lot of chats, anti-imperialist chats from my time going to Latin America. And the information you get on this right now, it just blows what you see on Twitter out of the water. And a lot of these people retweet articles or show information, all just to get ignored. Now, part of the reason they ignored, I think they want to keep this information down from the inside, right? Obviously, they want to suppress anything that pushes back against the oligarchs and the ruling class's plans. But a lot of people just ignore this, right? Because they want their confirmation bias. And to see a lot of people praise this stuff, and I want to ask you this question, and Jayme, put us on big screen and take a look at the banner I got. Because one of the arguments that somebody made the other day, and it came from a leftist, and I was so surprised, illegal immigration hurts workers' bargaining power for wages in the United States. Do migrant workers hurt American workers' wages in your mind? Because every single time I look at data, I don't see this. I see the majority of the jobs they take are the majority of the jobs that Americans won't take, right? You know what I'm saying? Like, in other words, if we sent all the migrants home tomorrow, who's going to pick the fruit? It's going to be $17 for a head of lettuce, for crying out loud. And that's just true because a lot of these tariffs, certain tariffs, and we can talk about tariffs in a second because I'm for targeted tariffs, right? I mean, the jury's out on tariffs. McKinley said, what do you want, higher wages or cheaper products? I think in certain areas, if we were serious about bringing manufacturing back to the United States, we could target and tariff certain items that can be made in the United States. The jury's out on that. I'm not 100% sold on it, but I understand the theory behind it. But if you start tariffing small items like coffee and stuff that are coming in from Colombia that we are so dependent on and whatnot, you know what I'm saying? Who's going to pay the price of that tariff? We are. Mm-hmm. But do you think that migrant workers actually hurt American workers' wages? Because I think the big argument is, Matt, and I'll give it to you, is that the fact is it's not that they hurt the wages of the American worker here. It's the fact that we have no industry. We've also shipped off the majority of decent jobs in manufacturing to Indochina, to Asia, that are in Vietnam, Cambodia, Laos. You know what I'm saying? Even Beijing, the salaries are caught up so much that they're moving into their neighboring companies to get the low wages down. I don't think the argument is the fact that these immigrants that are coming in here are taking jobs. They might be taking jobs in some areas of construction and whatnot, but the majority of these people are doing the work the Americans don't want to do. Your thoughts? Do migrants hurt American workers' wages? Go ahead.
No, they don't hurt our wages. They're doing, like you said, they're doing the jobs we're not doing. But the shipping of jobs, you hit it on the head. That's really the key. We don't talk about that. The deregulations that happened in the 80s, 90s, it allowed these companies to do whatever the hell they wanted and put, take the jobs overseas. As far as migrants go and how we are compassionate towards them and this rift between the Democrats and the Republicans, it's fascinating to me, Craig, that there was a shift that happened because it used to be the opposite. It used to be the Democrats saying we care about how we treat undocumented workers. We care about them. We don't want them being exploited for cheap labor. So that used to be something that Bernie would champion way back. If you go back to the early 90s and the 80s, he would say the Republicans are trying to exploit these workers. We want to have a better situation at the border where we're not letting people come in here and be exploited like that. So that was something that Democrats used to be very mindful of and very, very, very accommodating and empathetic. And now you switch it and you got the Democrats at the top of the lungs saying, all you Trump voters, joke's on you, because now all your gas and eggs are going up because Trump's going to get rid of all the people we were exploiting all these years. So F you, because we could have kept exploiting them. So I saw that shift happen. I think it's fascinating. But but make no mistake about it. Trump, whatever he's doing, and we've gone through his tweets, we understand the language, the fear mongering, the socialist terms he likes to use, the calling them criminals. We know the game plan. We know the blueprint for that. One thing you got to give the guy credit for is the thing he campaigned on, he's doing. He called it an emergency, a national emergency at the border, right? He called it an actual emergency because that's what he ran on, and he called it an emergency. That's official. That happened. You got to give the guy credit for doing what he did. Yeah. Go to the Democrat side. You want to run on abortion rights. You want to run on climate change. Well, why don't you declare a state of emergency for the climate, Biden? Why didn't you do that when you got in? Why didn't you codify Roe v. Wade? So at least you got to give the guy credit for doing the thing he campaigned on, and we're watching it happen in real time.
Well, Biden did sign in some executive orders too, as well, that helped out the LGBTQI community. I'm going to try not to use the LGBTQI term anymore because I think it's really sad to lump trans people in with gay people. I think from now on, I hate that. You know what I'm saying? lumping everybody in the left. We have to stop lumping people. Enough with the lumping. But, there were certain things that I think a lot of people in those communities were happy with when it came to Biden. And obviously Biden kind of presented, and the mainstream media helped him, like he was championing and fighting for them. I think, a lot of people in Hollywood that were, specifically voting for Biden for that reason. I mean, there's a lot of people I met in the synthetic left in America that were okay with the Russian, with funding the Ukrainian-Russian war because Putin hates the gays. I mean, that's the mentality they have over here, not to look any deeper. I'm going to read a sentence, then we're going to bring in Fiorella for her to give a little opinions on this because it is getting interested in right here in this thing. Okay, where were we? Obama and Biden deported as many, if not more, but Trump has to show his base something. Once again, concentrating on the base. For me right now, this is about blaming the independent, alternative, mainstream media that just parrots all these things. If you watch Newsmax or OAN or any of these channels, you have a lot of independent, populist right and ex-libertarians that are still libertarians, which, by the way, Angela has resigned her seat, so it's going to be very interesting who's going to take the reins there, but I don't know if it's all for none. Anyways, what American jobs will these people take away when we don't have any? And me and Fam talked about this. Like I said, we're in these chats where it's very nuanced. It's very deep. There's an understanding of what's actually going on behind the scenes and in these countries, as opposed to the surface level bullshit you get on Twitter from the chosen one and Elon's friends. We've outsourced them all. We just talked about this. That's our government's fault, no one else. And I think people sometimes forget, especially a lot of people here who think that the migration problem is a real problem. We're talking about human beings here, ladies and gentlemen. We're talking about fucking people. Those adamant on stopping the border issue need to stop our obsession with coups, interventions, and sanctions in the global south, or they're very unserious. And a lot of people are very unserious because they are looking for confirmation bias. Useless to have a conversation about massive immigration without addressing our massive interventions in nearly 1,000 military bases. 100 of them, over 100 of them in Latin America. Move this on up. Good on Honduras and Colombia for protecting themselves from the arrogance of the Monroe Doctrine. I hope more follow this lead. The world has shifted by too many fold. The world has shifted, but too many fold when pressured, and many now are in their most vulnerable. As I've said, Syria is an indication the non-aligned axis is extremely not aligned, and allies cannot be trusted. Trump and company's animosity towards Latin America will only get worse because that's the agenda. Fam is here. Fam, I want you to jump in right now. Ladies and gentlemen, boots on the ground. Our co-host, our friend, our colleague, Fiorella Isabel. I hope you're staying warm. I love that white jacket you were wearing in a lot of your videos. Fam, I didn't want to do this show without getting your opinions about Latin America because we've been just diving into this whole situation. And it is really, to me, I said in the beginning of the show, fam, I'm not going to blame the oligarchs. I'm not going to blame the corporations, the ruling class, Donald Trump. I'm blaming the people now. Because like you said in this sentence over here, they don't want to pay any attention to what the actual cause of this migration is. We've gone down to Latin America, and this is something that we talk about all the time. Me and Fiorella are not ideologues. We're not going there to fight for communism or socialism to have a path. We're going there to fight for national sovereignty, what the people choose. And at the end of the day, the majority of these countries don't have their national sovereignty. Fiorella Isabel, ladies and gentlemen.
Hey guys, what's up? Yeah, I have a lot to say about this. This has really hit a chord with me and you, I know, Pasta, because of our experience in Latin America. And I do think people get sort of sidetracked. They either look at the big picture stuff only, meaning like, yes, obviously this is happening in terms of expanding the surveillance system, which is extremely important for us to know. We're talking about the border crisis being a psyop to pretty much encourage the use of whether it's a specific camera, specific type of recognition devices that are going to look after you, right? Because they want to catch the evil people, migrants, terrorists coming in. Yeah. So they want to do that, right? And that is a part of it. That is a huge part of all of this, even though they're not going to tell you that's what it is. But I recently did a whole thread on the Davos agenda and this sex worker who pretty much gave so many secrets, and she's hardly the only one. I mean, you can find all of this stuff on Davos for a long time. We have been talking about it for a long time. And a whole part of that is the elite using the idea of migrants and the idea of these people that are coming from other countries as the scapegoat, essentially, for the blaming of what's happening in the United States and what's happening in Europe. And they're purposely doing this because they know that the public will turn on their neighbor, they'll turn on the other, which the other could be, you know, somebody from a different country, a different culture, a different religion. We've seen the rhetoric coming from the right. And the rhetoric used to bother me a lot in the beginning of my political journey, where I was coming from a more leftist, liberal side, where it was all about the rhetoric, right? But as I've just gone through this journey, more than the rhetoric, what bothers me are the actions. And the actions of both the Democrats and the Republican elites, the people who are in power, show you every single step of the way that they are together and against you. And we see this in the relationship between Barack Obama and Donald Trump. We've seen this in the wedding photos between the Trump wedding photo and Hillary Clinton and Bill Clinton attending. There are so many complete and total obvious realities about this, the Jimmy Carter funeral as well. And so these people are together, they're united. Who are not united are everybody else. So when you have this whole thing, this whole fixation about the border, yes, I agree with Matt, Trump delivered. He delivered to his base in terms of what the red meat is, as you call it, Pasta, what the red meat is for this whole situation. The red meat being the border crisis and how these illegals are coming in and how we need to send them back to where they came from. And then everything will magically be resolved and everything will magically disappear. The problem is, as I mentioned earlier, they're going to continue to push the surveillance, the expansion of the surveillance state and these surveillance systems to pretty much catalog everybody like your cattle, essentially. And that is one thing. But the other thing is, of course, simultaneously, they want to manufacture consent to the continuation of the Monroe Doctrine, the way Trump has referred to the Americas, the way he's trying to change the name from the Gulf of Mexico to the Gulf of America. I don't really care about that. I don't care about the fact that it's being changed. I care about the reasoning behind that. People get emotional about it, and I get it. But for me, it's more of like, what does it mean? What are they trying to do? They're trying to continue the expansion of the Monroe Doctrine. They're trying to continue the expansion of this idea of manifest destiny only coming from the United States and from the West. That hasn't changed at all. And they're trying to do it in the same way they've been doing it all along. If you think that Donald Trump came in and had this policy thrown at him and that's all his administration was going to do, and it just sort of happened, no, this is his role. Donald Trump is playing a role. This is why, Matt, I don't give him this much credit, because I don't believe that he's doing this because he wants to. I believe he's doing this because this is his role. Just like Biden's role was to be the idiot that got everything thrown at him. Very similar to me, recalling George W. Bush and how George W. Bush was like this dumb idiot who just like, of course, was a war criminal and all these things. But he was chosen for that role. He was the face that was supposed to be the sinking face of the empire during the war in Iraq and Afghanistan. That was Joe Biden's role. Donald Trump's role is to kind of clean that up, similarly to what Barack Obama did. And people fell for it for decades, okay? They fell for it for years, a segment of the population. And then they realized, holy crap, this is not the guy we thought he was. And so that's Donald Trump's role. And Donald Trump is playing it very well. And so he's convincing people he's this hero and he's showing everybody, look what America's doing. Look how we can make Gustavo Petro agree with us. Look how all of this can happen. But really, it's the same type of imperialist policy that we've had before. He's just showing off more. And what's going to end up happening is a continued intervention in Latin America, because that was what was designated before. The shift is to leave Europe, and Lukashenko said it today or yesterday, to leave Europe, to have an end to the war between Russia and Ukraine, and of course, to focus now into Iran the global South and Latin America. And everything that you see happening and unfolding before you right now is essentially that. And that's as clear as day to me now, more than it ever has been.
Fam, let's talk about this, because I was telling Matt and I was telling our audience how we are in these anti-imperialist chat, right?
Yeah.
Disappointing to see some on the left make the argument about wages being driven down, by migrants. They reduce the bargaining power from American workers when we have no industry here, right? Everybody's working for an app. I remember when you said that a long time ago, and it's so true. But there's also been talks when we start talking about this thing over here. Let's put that aside, the fact that we have no industry. Really, there's no jobs anyways. And if all the migrants went away tomorrow, you pay $17 for a head of lettuce. But let's talk about Colombia's role, because Colombia and Gustavo Petro is a very interesting candidate, right? He has some relationships with the Clintons. He was the mayor of Bogota. We heard from the Communist Party, you were doing the translating, from the head of the Communist Party in Colombia. He says, well, Gustavo Petro is not the ideal candidate, right? We're actually mitigating damage. We feel he's enough right now. He's a guy who's worked enough within the establishment to take the first step and actually reforming what Colombia needs to do. All the eyes were on the vice president, Francia, in Colombia, right there. You know what I'm saying? They went along with Gustavo Petro and they used it. They figured it was definitely a step in the right direction, getting away from the Duque government. But here it says, Colombia surrenders to Trump's demands. Bogota will dispatch presidential plane to pick up migrants slated for deportation from the United States. Colombia has bowed to the pressure of Washington and reversed its decision to bar U.S. flights carrying deported illegal migrants from landing in the country. I wish they would just use migrants, you know what I'm saying, instead of using the term illegal, because they use the term illegal once again to make you think that these are criminals. Their only crime was going into that country, but are they really committing a crime when we're up all in their country? We have all these bases. On Sunday, Colombian President Gustavo Petro announced that he will turn away American military aircraft full of deportees unless the U.S. sets a protocol for the dignified treatment of migrants. U.S. President Donald Trump quickly reacted by promising to impose tariffs on Colombian goods and visa restrictions on Colombian officials. Bogota announced later on Sunday that Petro's presidential plane would be sent to pick up Colombian nationals slated for deportation. The government of Colombia, under the direction of President Gustavo Petro, has arranged for the presidential plane to facilitate, now I'm going to read this quickly here, the dignified return of Colombian nationals who were to arrive in the country today in the morning hours coming from deportation flights, Petro's office said in a statement. Colombians, as patriots and subjects of rights, were not and will not be banished from Colombian territory, the statement said. Fam, he made a stink that how dare Donald Trump send over Colombian nationals and people from Colombia, whether they be illegal or illegal in his mind, in handcuffs. He sent them away and then sent his plane there after Donald Trump announced that there would be tariffs. Your thought on what Gustavo Petro's moves are and his reaction? Because there's also something that's not being talked about this. For years, and this is something Camilla said, Escalante, Casachwan News, that they've just taken people from all different countries and bagged them up like they're Latinos and just dropped them off in Mexico. And for years, Mexico would capitulate and take all these people in from different Latin American countries. That's not right, fam.
Yeah. So again, the United States has continued acting like they own the entire Americas. When we talk about, for example, oh, I'm from America, most of us just assume it's the United States, but there's North America, there's South America, there's Central America, there's, so many people in this whole region. But the United States is looked on as the leader and the owner of the Americas. You have Southcom all over Latin America. You have the most nefarious CIA cutouts, the most nefarious NGOs. You have Colombia, so Colombia is a NATO partner, but I don't believe they actually have military bases there, but they are a NATO partner. So this is very interesting because we knew that there was going to be a shift with Gustavo Petro, even though he's not a revolutionary by any means. He's more of a milquetoast type of, left-leaning progressive. He came from a very militaristic, radical side, but as many of them do, he went into the establishment and sort of became very pacified, right? And he did reach obviously a point when we were there during the Colombian election, where he was the guy that they looked to because he was somewhat transitional, meaning he's not this communist revolutionary guy or even somebody like Daniel Ortega or Nicolas Maduro, but he's somebody that would at least have a conversation with the West, but simultaneously would also try to maintain Colombia's interests. He reopened a vehicle for conversations with Venezuela. However, most recently, he also denounced Venezuela's elections, essentially put a level of uncertainty and distrust on the electoral system that the Venezuelan people chose. This is common in Latin America, similar to what we've seen, for example, in the Middle East or West Asia, where we have seen Palestinians and Syrians get thrown under the bus by those closest to them. This is not uncommon, and I believe this is part of the reason the non-aligned axis is losing. But going back to Gustavo Petro himself, what he's doing now, he had to do, in my opinion, because if he didn't respond to Donald Trump in some way, he would have been seen as a complete and total coward by the majority of the Latin American countries, including the ones that aren't super radical. Because you have Xiomara Castro, who we also were at her election, who also became this symbol of resistance in Central America. Everybody thought she was going to be a little bit more of this progressive type. She has been very adamantly fighting for the sovereignty of Honduras, and she and Petro and several of Latin American leaders are having a meeting. And the thing is, a lot of people will say this is theater, that this is just theatrical, and it is. I mean, you have Donald Trump puffing his chest and showing that the United States government is strong and that they're going to make these illegals, these Colombians, these migrants take back their people and act like this is normal without addressing the imperialist cause, of course, without addressing the fact that they just throw people on others the same way they want to throw Gazans on Egypt and Jordan, right? It's the same type of mentality. Nobody criticizes that, though, because we've grown to accept it subconsciously. But in terms of Gustavo Petro, I believe he did a good thing by pushing back against Donald Trump. Simultaneously, he is not somebody that I would count to maintain this. He's not a revolutionary, so he's going to try to play the game and have conversations with the United States, and he's going to try to also appear that he's resisting and pushing back. That's his role. That's who he is. He's not a revolutionary. He's a quote-unquote progressive. He will play the game and go after Venezuela, go after Nicaragua. He'll dismiss them as, not having fair and free elections. This is why he gets the ire of Daniel Ortega and many others. However, what Donald Trump did was unnecessary. Donald Trump could have mitigated something very diplomatically, and he didn't. He acted like a bully, but this is who we are. So I do think there's room for criticism. I don't think you shouldn't not criticize Donald Trump for what he did because of the mechanisms he used to go about it. And I also don't think Colombia is a reliable partner in terms of resisting what the United States is doing, because not only of their NATO status, but because of the fact that Gustavo Petro is somebody that has toyed with the establishment and is going to be far more open and recipient to it. I still, though, I have to say, the last thing I want to say on this is I do think that this did hit a nerve in Colombia, because Gustavo Petro has been open with the United States. They have been cooperative, and they have been, I would say, easygoing with them in a way. And to be treated like this in spite of cooperating that way, I think that actually did push them away a bit.
Let's pull up the Xiomara Castro tweet over there and take a look at this.
Yep.
This is something. Listen, I'm trying right now to find the question I asked Manuel Zelaya about what would they do as far as wouldn't they be able to coup them right away. By the way, fam, there are 7 U.S. bases in Colombia, 3 naval bases. One of them was in Cartagena. I think we saw a battleship where it was a Colombian battleship that was sharing a port with the United States. But since 2009, they built 7 bases. In Latin America, the only NATO country is Colombia. Now, it is different government now.
NATO partner.
Yeah, it's a NATO partner. It's a special NATO status, right? So it's like it's the only American country in the Americas that's part of NATO that has that special status. But here's Honduran President Xiomara Castro. In the case of unnecessary reprisals against our immigrants, we would have to reconsider a change in our military cooperation policies with the USA. For decades, they've maintained military bases on our soil without paying a cent. You're right, because I think it was 2007, when Manuel Zelaya, who is Xiomara Castro's husband, was the president of Honduras. A lot of social programs, a lot of infrastructure, right? And Fiorella can tell you this, Manuel Zelaya is not a hardcore socialist. He is a capitalist of sorts, where when we ask them, what are you going to nationalize in your country when Xiomara becomes president? It's like, oh, we're not going to really necessarily nationalize anything. We're going to bring in fair competition to get the best bids and get what's best for the Honduranian people. I think they're kind of saying that and still kind of having some social programs. They want to make sure they take care of the poor. Xiomara Castro and Manuel Zelaya have put themselves on the side of the poor. I think that's why they won their election, and she won that election with big numbers. But here she is talking about the possibility about moving these bases. Fam, I am nervous, because if she tries to pull this move, it's coup time as far as I'm concerned in America. I don't think they're going to ever let go of Guatemala. I don't think they're going to ever let go of Honduras. I mean, they have this kind of relationship with El Salvador. They don't have Nicaragua. There are no Nicaraguan bases in Nicaragua, U.S. bases in Nicaragua. That's why you hear Yankee go home. It's a different story here, but let's listen to Xiomara Castro really quickly and then get your thoughts on this. And Matt, I know you've been waiting in the wings, so anything you got to say?
Pueblo hondureño, quiero manifestar que esperamos que la nueva administración norteamericana del presidente electo democráticamente, Donald Trump, sea abierta al diálogo, constructivo y amistoso. Que no tome represalias innecesarias contra nuestros migrantes frente a una actitud hostil de expulsión masiva de nuestros hermanos. Tendríamos que considerar un cambio en nuestras políticas de cooperación con Estados Unidos, especialmente en el campo militar, en el que sin pagar un centavo por décadas mantienen bases militares en nuestro territorio, que en este caso perderían toda la razón de existir en Honduras. Pueblo hondureño, quiero manifestar que esperamos que la nueva administración norteamericana del presidente
just real quick, I got a couple things I want to say on that. She's absolutely right that for decades they haven't paid anything and they have military bases, because this is part of the U.S. foreign policy on Latin America. It's our backyard, blah, blah, blah. Everybody knows that, right? I disagree with you, Pasta. I think somebody has to do it. I think somebody has to show
Says
them
the girl who
that
goes
they
running
cannot.
into the fire, by the way.
Yeah. I would. If I was a leader of these countries, are you kidding me? I would go and fight the empire. That's what I would do. Will it be dumb? Maybe. It depends, like what allies you have and all. The problem right now is after the fall of Syria, there is a clear distinction as to who would stand with these countries, because let's be honest, Russia and China don't get involved unless it serves their interests. That's a reality a lot of people don't want to hear. Unless they have invested interest in something, they're not going to get involved. People have made this idea that these countries are all fighting together. They're not. It's called the non-aligned axis for a reason. If Honduras does this, it's going to be Honduras on its own. Perhaps they can reach out to Venezuela. Perhaps they can reach out to Nicaragua. But in terms of going against the empire, it's going to be they're on their own. And that's precisely my problem with the anti-imperialist sector. You cannot fight a united, strong front like NATO and their terrorist entity that is pretty much taking down governments one by one by being completely divided in your own self-interest. You have to be united in order to fight them. And there's going to be the questions of sovereignty, of allowing countries to do what they want. That's fine, but that's irrelevant when you're being taken down one by one. And I think that obviously they're going to make that decision. I think they're very cautious about it. I don't think they're like Nicaragua. Daniel Ortega would do it in a heartbeat. I think she is saying this because she wants a diplomatic solution, because she wants to have these conversations. She has always been, Rosario, she has always been Xiomara, excuse me, has always been extremely diplomatic, and I don't think that's going to change. However, there has to be a point where these countries stand up to the hegemon. I mean, if they don't, they're going to be looked on as weak. And right now, because of the rise of multipolarity, because of the rise of so many things regarding, the resistance, the pushing back against Israel, the pushing back against the United States, people are more in tune with that and are more supportive of that on the outer layer. So,
by the way, I do want to add this here to the stage. I, a landowner, went from being a capitalist to a socialist. It's a heightening of spirit. It is a conviction of human being. Capitalism is so barbaric. It is not the future of humanity. If capitalism is the future of humanity, then humanity is destroyed. And that was by Manuel Zelaya. So it was a little bit different than when we started speaking to his administration. But once again, fam, I think they were kind of proceeding with caution, right? Like they were walking on eggshells. They understood. And I can find the tweet too, where I had one question with Manuel Zelaya. I said, what's going to stop the United States from cooing Xiomara just the same way they cooed you? Now I got up a little bit of a political answer from him, right? He says there's a German philosopher that says politics is a continual war, but there's another philosopher that says war is a continuation of politics. And he just said you had to have some form of faith and whatnot, which led us to believe that there were some types of conversations that are happening behind closed doors that we're not privy to. I mean, we can see the situation the way it is. But, I mean, this is going to be very, very interesting. Matt, you've been on the sidelines for a while. Give us your thoughts on what's going on. I mean, I can tell you this much. I'm nervous for what's to come. Xiomara has also called an emergency meeting for CELAC. Right, fam? She said, let's have a meeting immediately. Let's talk about what we have to do. We have to do something because this guy is going crazy over here. And who knows when it's going to stop or how it's going to stop. But I've always been curious about, listen, Donald Trump wants to deport these people. It's not like you could just throw them out of the country and that's it. These other countries have to accept them. Your thoughts, Matt Weinglass?
Yeah, no, I think that in order to take on the empire, you have to align yourself with others. You can't do this on your own. So I guess this emergency meeting is a good thing. That she's talking like this. That just watching her in that clip. I mean, she's the language, her etiquette and presentation, and kind of pleaded Donald Trump. It's almost, I don't want to say she's not necessarily officially threatening, but she's saying if you don't come in a respectful way, so we can have a discussion, then we're going to have no choice. We're going to have to stand up to you. And I think that's very brave, very bold of her to do that. Versus, I mean, Gustavo, and you guys were talking about him playing this role, having to look good and kind of tease a little fight back, but then eventually cave. It's just a role he's playing. But yeah, taking on the empire. This is scary stuff. I mean, you have to be ready. So however the secret meeting goes, whoever she's going to align with, I know, Fee, you mentioned maybe aligning with Venezuela a little bit, Nicaragua. I mean, these are countries that know how to fight coups. We know that Maduro has plenty of experience of standing up against coups. So we hope that she can find that alignment. And you're 100% about China, Russia. They have no reason to get involved, as we saw with Syria. So I agree with you guys 100% on that. And Donald Trump, the mistake he's making is being so theatrically vicious, because it's just language. I mean, we're talking about word choices. I mean, he could be doing the same thing with different word choices, but he's playing this role of aggressor, and there's going to be a backlash at some point. Someone's going to cave, and it looks like Honduras might be not cave, but might be ready to resist. So yeah, this is a very interesting time, very unstable time. But I want to keep an eye on how this secret meeting you spoke of, Fee. I want to see what transpires there. What kind of alignment can she have on her side, fighting back against the empire, which again is a very hard thing to do on your own.
Yeah, no, it is. I mean, it is. It's absolutely, it's a risk. And I think, some people may say the criticism is that, oh, look, what did Colombia get out of this? Look what, Donald Trump, they could have just sent back some of their people, but that is submitting to a bully, right? And if you have any level of self-respect, if you have any level of something, you have to fight back against this. You don't have a choice. Otherwise, you're going to demoralize your people. You're going to seem weak, and there is a whole psychological game that the West has been playing on all these countries, especially the countries that are smaller and that they know don't have the ability to fight back. And so that this was necessary. However, as we've all mentioned, right, Gustavo Petro is not a revolutionary. He's not somebody that's going to just try to fight back the same way Xiomara is. I don't even think she is one of these radicals either, but she has been far more, I think, aggressive in the right way. She has been more of a person that stood on her ground compared to Gustavo Petro, who has played the game too many times. And I think he did fold, but he also did enough to show that there is some sort of resistance there. In terms of who he is as a president, he's exactly the type of president that the United States could convince to give in and fold. And that's obviously a worry because of the Venezuela situation, because the hope was when he would come in, he would open the relationship, the diplomatic channels with Venezuela. And while that happened, that has kind of gone back. And we are seeing, of course, the West take down countries one by one, continue to defang them, right, in this way. And it's just not, there's not something happening that a lot of people are hoping is happening. They're hoping that there's going to be this pushback from, the multipolar access, the new BRICS group, but the BRICS group includes so many people that are pro-West. So because there's not a definitive approval of who these people should be, for example, Venezuela was pushed out by Brazil, there isn't really an alignment that is necessary to push back against what's happening. So anything people like Xiomara do, anything these countries do, it's going to fall on them. And obviously this needs to happen, but it's going to really require a lot of these other countries to come together eventually, because otherwise the US is just going to take hold of everything. And it's not just symbolic. I do think the symbolism of, for example, Greenland or the Gulf of Mexico being the Gulf of America or whatever it is next, I think that does mean something in terms of the ultimate goal.
Yeah. Can I piggyback on this? Is kind of the theme of the whole show today. Craig, we're talking about this Emperor Trump. It's Emperor America, Emperor US. Like, the American people have to understand that this isn't Trump pushing this. He's representing the empire that we all live under, and we have to see that. And Fiorella, you pointed this out about the you got the Carter funeral and the weddings and the golfing and all the ha ha ha. We're all on the same team, as George Carlin said. It's a big club, and you're not in it. None of us are in it. It's an empire that's running everything. And I think the American people need to use this opportunity to pay attention and see that this is not Trump uniquely doing this. He's doing the job of the empire that's been controlling us the whole time. And we got to get angry about it and wake up and stop being so complicit to it and acting like Trump's the thing we need to stop. And then we're going to go back to normal. No, we've been doing this. We've been parading around Latin America. We've been parading around the world, just having our way with every country. Anyone we want to coup that doesn't follow what we tell them to follow. And this has to be stopped. The American people have to get a little more tuned in, a little more angry about the entire system, not just about Trump and what Trump's doing.
Yeah, I mean, I'm kind of trying to advance search to look for what Manuel Zelaya said, and I guess I don't know why it's not coming up, but I have to go dig it out. I guess they're trying to hide it, because I did ask Manuel Zelaya that question. What about what about if they coup Xiomara the same way they cooed you? And his attitude was to have faith. I mean, what are you going to say? It's like Fam was talking about, like. Fam, I want to get on to the last part and go over the Belarus elections. However, I just want you to finish up the segment where there's been some criticisms with people who say, well, normalization is necessary. We're talking about Venezuela. Normalization with Venezuela is necessary because we want their citizens to eat. We want their citizens to have a better life. And if some type of deal is struck by the Chavistas and Maduro with the Trump administration, and then the oil starts flowing again, that's the best thing to happen. Why, in your mind, is normalization a bad thing at times? And could it be a good thing at times?
It could be a good thing if you have an equal relationship where you're viewed as an equal partner and you're respected as an equal. when that does not exist, it's not going to be a good thing because it's going to be under the parameters of the United States, the same way that this ceasefire is already under the dictatorship of Israel, the United States, and it was modified, or it was mediated, I should say, by Qatar and Egypt, who are under also the control of Israel and the United States. So when we talk about this age of normalization, and I'm going to write an article on this because I don't think people understand what I mean yet. We're talking about this idea of peace being promoted, but it's not really a long-lasting peace. It would be the veneer of peace, a veneer of peace under the direction of the West, of what the West wants. For example, and I'll talk about this as well, there are ideas, there are reports that Russia and Ukraine are going to reach peace negotiations, and these peace negotiations would entitle a set of things, right? And essentially what it would mean is kicking the can down the road. And that's what it would mean when we talk about Venezuela normalization. In the case of Russia, Ukraine, you're going to see the admittance of Ukraine into NATO would be something that they'll say, oh, it won't happen. But if they have enough troops and enough forces there, that it's something that would be revisited. It's great to stop the war. It would actually benefit a lot of people. It would benefit me. If I was being selfish, I would say, of course, stop the war right now. And of course, I could fly in and out and I could do all sorts of things. But when you look at it in the long run, if Russia gives in a way that doesn't guarantee anything, and even guaranteeing, they have seen time and time again, they don't live up to these guarantees, it's going to come back and haunt them. It's going to come back with a vengeance, and at a time where they're most vulnerable. The same thing with Venezuela. We have seen Diosdado Cabello, who is this Venezuelan leader that literally tried to have conversations with the United States several times before 2015 and before 2019, both times before there was an attempt to coup Venezuela. And he tried doing this several times, and he's the one that's trying to have these conversations again, trying to have some sort of relationship with the United States. But when you are Venezuela, and when you're coming from being sanctioned and having the blockade and having all of this just complete and total smear job, and being vilified entirely and told that you don't have fair elections, that you're a dictatorship, that you're a democracy, and you don't even have some of the allies you should have, like Brazil, like Colombia, like some of these Latin American countries, Peru, all these countries that should be on your side, when you don't have them, you're not in a position to negotiate as well as you should be. And so when you have a relationship and alliance built with the United States, you don't have the upper hand. They do. So anything that happens regarding Venezuela is going to be them giving in. And the moment the United States and the terrorist factions like NATO and the CIA cutouts come into a country, they never, ever, ever leave it better than it was before. They literally take what they want, they slice it up into pieces, and they destroy it. And that's what's going to happen to Venezuela if there is some sort of normalization. It may not happen immediately. You're going to hear that, oh, great, the sanctions are gone. People are going to go back to normal. The same thing you're hearing about Syria. But in reality, the whole thing is being partitioned and cut up and spread to the West and the Western elites. And that's why normalization doesn't work right now. It would work if you had mutual interest, if you had equal partnerships, some sense of equity, some sense of respect. When there's not that level of respect, when they think they own you, how are you going to talk about normalization efforts? It's like putting the cart before the horse.
All right, that's it for that segment. That's it for Matt Weinglass. He's got to jump on out. We had him long enough. We're already an hour and 40 minutes into the show. We were supposed to be 90-minute shows, but again, we can never do that because we have so much to say. Fam, is there another alternative to that direction? In other words, if normalization with the West so they can come on in and chop it up for their oligarchs and take the Venezuela, what would you suggest they do? Hold the line and hope to find other partners like the Chinese and the Russians.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would say hold the line and continue demanding that there be a unity of the non-aligned axis. The same way, for example, there is a unity among the axis of resistance, the small factions that exist. There needs to be a unity among the non-aligned axis, the same way that NATO is aligned. When you attack one of NATO, what do? They sanction you, they threaten to invade you. All of this happens when you attack somebody in NATO. But when they attack somebody on the non-aligned axis, what happens? Absolutely nothing, because they don't want to get involved. They don't want to stir the pot. They want, these countries to make their own decisions. There comes a time when that needs to happen. And ultimately, Pasta, what needs to happen is the United States and Israel both have to be defanged. And the only people that can defang them in the United States are the United States citizens themselves. So unfortunately, we are waiting on the U.S. public to do something, because if there is some sort of change happening from the outside in, it's just going to lead to an all-out war. But if there's a change coming from the inside of the United States, where people want to take back their government, then that's what it is. You can call it what you want. You can call it revolution. You can call it whatever you want to call it. But that's essentially what would have to happen, because there's just going to be a continuation of this tug and pull until the U.S. continues to fall and be defanged. And it is falling, but it's not something that happens overnight. It's something that takes a long, long time for that to happen. And people need to be aware of the time constraints of that.
The anti-imperialist chat's going off right now for us, fam. Matt Weinglass, thank you so much for joining the show. What do you got going on this week? I know that this Thursday, somebody else might be running the show for you.
Yeah,
you might be on locations. Why don't you let everybody know, and we'll get you on out of here. Let's make Matt big so he can show that pretty face off to all the audience out there. And thank you for joining the show today.
Yes, absolutely. I appreciate these conversations. This is what it's about. This is how we get people in tune and critical thinking skills. That's what our shows are about. Homeless Left is now on twice a week. We're Tuesdays and Thursdays, noon Pacific. Always in-depth conversations we have here in Hollywood and looking out to the rest of the world. We have Garland Nixon coming in with us tomorrow. We're having a little chat on the show then. And then Thursday, as Craig mentioned, we're changing things up a little bit. I think we're going to have Craig hold down the fort for Homeless Left and be our host for the day, because I'm going to be stationed at the Menendez trial. We're going to be doing some live coverage from the Menendez trial in Van Nuys, which is right here in LA, and getting you guys a little insight on that. If you guys haven't checked out some of the happenings with that, we're going to be getting into that. So lots going on this week and beyond. But thanks you guys so much for having me on in the discussions. I always appreciate TruthWire and Fee, all the work you do, and Craig, definitely. This is what it's about: is we engage people, get them thinking and talking with each other, and hopefully get a revolution of some sort going here and beyond.
Matt Weinglass, ladies and gentlemen, you know him, you love him. He'll be on Boots on the Ground on Thursday. Tomorrow he's on with Garland Nixon. That's the Homeless Left guy, Matt Weinglass. We'll see you soon, Matt.
Awesome. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Matt.
Fam, why don't you center yourself? Let's take a quick 60-second break and come right back and do Belarus. I just want to refill my coffee and come right back. Literally want to grab coffee.
Because I got to head out soon. So.
All right, give me 60 seconds. Fam, center yourself because you're off to the right again. I mean, it's off to the left. You're just fugaziness. We'll be right back. Pasta Jardula, Fiorella Isabel, Boots on the Ground. We're going to talk about Belarus. We talked about Latin America. We talked about Gaza. We talked about Emperor Trump. Not an emperor because of the way he's doing things. Joe Biden did the same thing with executive order. We're talking about the way he's praised out there, the hero worshiping fam. I didn't think it could be as bad as it was on the left. I was wrong. Somebody said, hold my beer. Here comes the guy from the WWE Hall of Fame. Jayme CheeseSlice on the ones and twos. We'll be right back. 60 seconds. Hit the like button. Hit the share button. This is your TruthWire giving you the truth. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we are back. TruthWire here, Pastor Jardula, Fiorella Isabel, boots on the ground. Let's get that one tweet up. I don't think you have it ready, Jayme. In the doc, I put Fiorella's tweet on there. It's a simple tweet. Fam, I got to ask you right off the bat, and you can throw that right up, was the Belarus election fair? It said, internet is bad right now, but I'm heading to the polling close. If y'all have been following me, you know who counts the votes is vital, right? Not just who casts the vote, but who counts the votes. I'll give a full breakdown in a bit, but ID is required, in-person voting, and hand-counted paper ballots. No machines for voting or counting, fam. And you can click up to some of the pictures there for fam, and we can scroll through them. But why don't you just give us, there you are. That I don't know what that says in the back. It says BB. Right. The next
elections. Elections 2025.
Go to the next one, Jayme. There, you know, there's a ballot box. You can see that it's this is so what we see in Latin American countries.
Yeah.
It's in front of the purview of the people. There's fam going up there with a camera. Now you don't have to worry about knowing who votes there because people's names aren't on the ballots. The chain of custody starts at the door. Fam, was the election fair in your thoughts? And I'd like to give at the very end, we'll give a little clip and we'll congratulate the winner.
As far as I was able to see, and as far as I spoke to observers, it would be very difficult to rig this election, meaning because hand-counted paper ballots, and you can go and observe this. I obviously had a press pass and all that, so I was able to go and film this, and I could film pretty much when people were coming in to vote. Obviously not their names and stuff, but them coming in to get registered or get their show their identification, go find their name on there, and then go vote, to the time when I came back for the closing, because obviously the closing was at 8:00. So I have a few things to say about this, and then you guys can draw your own conclusion. But I have a hard time seeing hand-counted paper ballots that are sealed and not open until the voting day on Sunday, be a rigged thing, because of the fact that it was available for us to see. 1, 2, they do all submit it to the same place, which is the central election building, the Central Election Commission, I would say, where all of these paper ballots go to. They are put in these envelopes, and I have more of this coming out, this video footage where I have this thread coming where you can see how these ladies literally go and they take these ballots and they put them into these designated envelopes that are sealed, and they send them off. The only thing that I would say is I wouldn't necessarily would be having, I think, how many days? Like 4 days of voting or 5 days of voting. They have 5 days of voting. They have early voting. So you can vote early. From this past Tuesday on the 21st, people could have started to vote.
Mail
and
in?
It started no, you had to go in there. And
with ID?
They had to go with ID, yes. And that is placed, if you guys saw in that little video, that is placed in this red ballot drop-off box once you're inside. Anybody that voted early, all of those ballots go to this red designated ballot box. The people who voted the day of on Sunday, all those ballots go to this green little transparent box. They are both counted on Sunday. So they're not counted before. So it's not like in the States where you're like, gee, okay, so we voted like 2 weeks early and they're going to start counting these ballots whenever they feel like it. And we don't know when they count them or what the purview is of them counting it.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, we have mail-in ballots. We also have the ones where you give it to this person. It's just like so ridiculous. So one thing they do have, and I asked about this and they explained it, and I had this video coming out, is if you are disabled and you absolutely cannot move, like if you're old or you cannot make it to the polling location that you're designated in, because it's one polling location, it's not another unless you work at a nearby this specific polling location, and then you have to register and say you work there and you'd rather vote there than where you are at home. That you can do. So there are a couple things here. If you are registered and you work at a place where it's just closer to you to go to this polling location, you can go there, but you have to make note of that ahead of time. If you are not working, or if you don't make note of that, you have to vote where you're told you're supposed to vote. If you are disabled, if you cannot make it in, what they will do is you have to inform them. I believe it was up until 6. The polls closed at 8, and it was 6 p.m. You had until 6 p.m. the day of to tell them, hey, I cannot come in. I need somebody to come in and pick up this and bring me a ballot, and I will vote. And then what they do is they do that. They come in, they bring you the ballot, you choose whoever you want to vote for. They give you this paper, and the designated person takes it back to the polling station where they were supposed to go and drops it off. But that has to be something that you have to have pointed out before. And if you absolutely can't, I think it is a few hours before the day of. And that is, to me, extremely flexible, because I wouldn't necessarily allow that. I do think that's very flexible, but they have to show that they are disabled, and they have to fill out paperwork to show that this is a thing. And that's how they make it.
I have a question about that, fam.
In that way. Yeah.
I have a question. So as you observed this process going on, did you observe a lot of ballots coming out of the red box at the end, or was it the majority of the ballots that were coming out from the day of voting?
No, I think there was it wasn't that big of a difference. I will say there was a lot of people that voted early, but there were definitely more ballots in the day of voting. So there were still more people that wanted to come in. And I went to several polling stations, not just one, but some were better than others in terms of giving you the facility to talk and to ask questions and all of that. Most people don't like being on camera. There was also this danger there that the people told me that were voting there. They said that they were afraid of people being like undercover Ukrainian terrorists. And this is because that happened before in Russia. It happened during the Russian elections, but it's also happened in Belarus. There wasn't a coup attempt via the elections in 2020. So people are afraid that because of all the stuff that's happened with Russia and Ukraine, that there will be some sort of attack. So the government was sort of preparing for that whole situation. And people were apprehensive about giving their information, about, it doesn't matter, about talking to any media, even if the media is friendly or the media is whatever. They weren't necessarily too open to that. But they did say that the process was extremely easy. Basically, you just go in to your polling location. You have to be registered ahead of time. You give your passport or your identification document, and they find you in that, and then you give your ballot, you go make your choice, you drop it off in the ballot box, and that's it. And then you go. Yeah. And that's it. And it's just, there's no is the device connected to the internet? It just makes my life easier too, because I didn't have to worry about that stuff. I didn't have to ask about, is this open source? Is there blockchain? Is this connected to the internet? What is there room for a hard drive? Or, so it was just easy. And it's not just at that one polling location. It is multiple. All of Belarus is paper ballots.
So we normally do an expedient test. In other words, one of the reasons they were able to break the system in the United States, especially California, it took you 6 hours to vote. It's that old John, I think it was John Panette. 4 hours for bread. I waited 4 hours for bread. They better have been walking around. Did you try the bread? 6 hours to vote. Is it expedient? Did you see how long the process takes from when somebody comes, has their ID, checks in, to the time they vote and the time they get out of there? Is it quick?
Yeah, I mean, there wasn't a long line because when I went before Sunday, so I went Saturday and Sunday, and on Saturday there were people trickling in. On Sunday there were more people, but there was never a line. It was just like people were just coming in and leaving, and then somebody would come up the stairs or down the stairs or whatever, and people were coming in and leaving. There wasn't like even remotely anything close to a line. I do think that I forget what I saw the turnout was. At noon, it was more than 55, or it was almost at 60%. So I think overall the turnout was at least over 60%.
Yeah.
But I did see the majority of voters being older. So I would say people in their between 45, 50 and above.
Yeah.
However, there were a few younger people that I did see, and they had the display of the candidates, and all of this I will post in every single polling location. You could see the 6 different candidates that were there, their names, their information, and all of that. And in order to be a candidate,
was it the only position that people were voting for was the president? Was there other jobs? Was
just the president?
It was just one. So it was 6 names, 1 ballot. It's easy peasy. I think.
Yeah.
Listen, that's another area which I think they kind of clout the process over here and muddy the waters is by having 27 people you got to vote for in one election. Therefore, you can't hand count it. Then you have to use a computer, right? I think that it's very efficient when you have one position and one people being able to vote. What about ballot access, fam? I know in Russia it's 100,000 signatures to get on the ballot to run for president. Did you find out about ballot access? Because I know this is an area now in which the argument, and it was especially in Venezuela, was the fact that what was her name? Maria Machado. I forgot the woman's name, but she wasn't allowed to run because she had taken money from a foreign entity. We'd also seen this with the I believe it's the Chamoyas in Nicaragua who were taking money or they refused to show their bank accounts. Have you talked or got any information when it comes to ballot access in Belarus?
Yeah. So in order to become a candidate for Belarus, you also need 100,000 signatures, at least from the voters, and you also that needs to be collected, obviously, and shown. And these signatures that are collected have to be collected by members of an initiative group that is registered with the Central Election Commission of the Republic of Belarus. So they have to be registered and they have to have over 100,000 signatures from voters. And this group that they get this initiative group has to have at least 100 members. If you have all of that and you're not receiving money from a foreign entity, you can run for office. What ended up happening from Belarus's point of view, from Lukashenko's point of view, this is what he said. It was the same thing that Daniel Ortega said, Pasta. It was that they were disqualified because they were receiving money from Western foreign entities. And if you're going to run for Belarus, for the president of to be the president of Belarus, you cannot have money from foreign entities. And obviously that's been echoed all over the world, especially the United States. Can you imagine if
Chinese,
one of us was
Chinese
funded
money,
by China or Russia, or even a small minuscule amount? We would never allow that. But if one of the candidates that the West poses or pushes gets pushed out because of that, they react this way. Now, I will say, I do think that there are things in terms of security that could have gone better, or that, for example, Russia has that they don't have. Like, Russia has definitely more cameras everywhere. They definitely have more of a surveillance. They have more of a security. You may not like that, but in terms of elections, at least in these election rooms, it may be necessary to a degree. They are, though. I like the fact that they don't have machines, that they do have these hand-counted paper ballots. So I thought that was cool. They do look at your ID, but there's nothing else. Like, there's no thumbprint. There's no a fingerprint that you have to give or anything like that, or any other metrics. It's just your ID, and that's all. So I think that's good because of simplicity's sake. Belarus is not a huge country. It's not huge. There's not a lot of people. So I can see this being easy. What I would like to know next time is to go to like the countryside and see how that works, because obviously I was in Minsk and I am in Minsk, and it's a lot different than what it would be like, say, in the middle of nowhere, like what we saw when we were in Nicaragua, right? The different locations and stuff.
Brazil, right? Going up to the favelas in Brazil, and going into the parts of Colombia, and in Nicaragua and Honduras, right? Driving through the countrysides and seeing those American bases off in the distance. Last question here, because I think a lot of people who want to bring a sense of legitimizing this election, because right away, just like we witnessed in Nicaragua, where they were calling it a pantomime election, they were calling this election a sham election before it even started, really just taking away their national sovereignty without even looking at the process as a whole. Why do you think that Lukashenko is so popular? He has now had the longest tenure of any leader in Europe by far. I know his enemies or his adversaries call him the last great dictator, but I've explained in the beginning how like strong leaders who fight for their country's national sovereignty are very much liked. And the best example I can use is in Bolivia, right? Evo Morales. He didn't want to run, but his people wanted him to run. They like people who represent them and fight for their national sovereignty. And I don't see anything wrong with somebody who's doing a great job if they want to keep their job and the people want them to do that. But why do you think Lukashenko is such a popular leader? But do you also see some issues with the fact that the youth is often checked out in Belarus and often checked out in Russia? What we've seen from Red Note in China is that there's this kind of, from these young people in China, that there is this kind of like very hard sense of being intrigued with what Western values are, or more like Western culture is like. It's very attractive to these young people. So number one, why is Lukashenko so beloved by his people? But do you see a problem with the youth staying out of this? As you mentioned, that there's a lot of old people voting.
100%. I mean, Lukashenko has joked about his politics being a dictatorship of order and kindness and justice. He has said that, and he said it's better to be a dictatorship than to be essentially what Europe, the EU, the United States represent, especially what he said was a democracy like Ukraine. Right. So he's almost admitting that it is like this because once you have power for that length of time, the same way Putin, this is how people perceive you, the same way Fidel Castro was perceived, etc. Right. And the reason I do think this is in peril, though, as you mentioned, is because it is very real. Like I said, a lot of people voting in greater amounts were definitely older. Young people are tuned out. They're less interested in this and in this type of politics because they don't understand like the historical context of it. They don't understand what actually is happening. They are viewing the world in terms of how it looks like in the here and now. So what it looks like is, Belarus looks like an extension of Russia. It appears when we talk about the infrastructure, the apartments and all of that, it's just very, very similar. They speak Russian. They don't speak Belarusian. They speak Russian. And so you have this whole idea of perhaps the grass is greener on the other side. Perhaps, look, these people make more money in the United States. They get paid more, and this is echoed in Russia as well, especially with the youth. They don't understand why they're not getting paid the wages that other people are getting paid in Europe or in the United States. And so you have that problem, and it's completely contradicting what Westerners see here when they come here and they're like, oh my God, look at this transportation system. Look at how clean it is. Look, there's no homeless people. There's no drug addicts, all of this stuff. But you have to put into consideration that when you're a Westerner and you come here with money or with American money, it's worth more here. and these people are not making those wages. So if you want to be a hypocrite and say it's great because I have a lot of money, you can do that. But if you want to be honest, there you will see like the different stages where countries like Belarus and Russia are at. Yes, they have their domestic issues, and that is up for these people of these countries to decide how to deal with them. But simultaneously, they are fighting the collective of the West. They're fighting NATO. And so the governments right now are hyper-focused on the Western, combating the collective West, on combating them because they want to survive as sovereign, independent states. And Russia doesn't want to be balkanized into what, however many different factions. And that is what's keeping hold of the country. So when you look at a leader like Lukashenko and a leader like Vladimir Putin, they have done so much for the country in terms of keeping people together, in terms of facing those huge like nemesis that the United States is, that NATO is. And during wartime, you just don't see that level of change. You don't really see that happening. And there is already something to the saying that says, it's better to rely on the devil that you know than somebody else. And so they know Lukashenko and they know what he's done. They know that he's standing up for their sovereignty, and the people that participate in government know that. Do I think that that's going to last forever? No, I do think that as the youth progresses and as the wars end, there's going to be a refocus into the domestic issues within these countries, and that could be an opportunity for the West to come in and actually shift things around. So essentially, what Lukashenko points out that I think a lot of people are really proud of, and what I've seen here from Belarusians is that they are proud of being Belarusian. They don't want to be told that they're Russian because they are Belarusian, but they see this sort of unity with Russia and with fighting NATO and the smear jobs of the West. The president of the Central, I believe, Election Commission of the entire Minsk region did say that the elections in Belarus are for Belarusians. They're not to appease NATO or to appease the EU. So they don't really care about what they think about these elections. And, they're just going to continue doing what they're going to continue doing.
It's kind of interesting because I do see a lot of these issues. I saw it in Cuba where a lot of the youth there they don't care about the revolution that happened years ago. They want to eat, they want to own their own businesses. And sometimes that could be a negative thing because then they look at their own government rather than looking at the macro and how the United States has sanctions and has punished Cuba and kept them out of, the international markets because of a blockade. And it is a blockade. You can't use your credit cards when you're in Cuba. This is something that we have to address because it's not going away. And it's going to be interesting because I do feel there is a little bit of naivety from the youth. Mm-hmm. And, they see all this culture, that we have, American youth, and having all this fun and the things we do and the things we're into. And sometimes it would happen to have them take their eye off the ball and understand their history and how, history can be rewritten. And we see how the libertarians have pretty much rewritten history when everything comes to socialist governments and everything in the past because of their ideologies. But I wanted to say congratulations to Alexander Lukashenko on his victory. He is now the longest tenured leader he was before, and he still is. That will still go on in Europe. From what we see, from what we understand, boots on the ground, Fiorella Isabel, it was a fair election. I would surely think that a lot of people in America who are into election integrity would say that they would take the Belarus system over what's happening in the United States by far. So congratulations to Alexander Lukashenko on his victory, no matter how you feel about him, whether you're an adversary of his and you call him the last dictator. I don't buy into that because I feel he won an election. He won a fair election. And when you have powerful leaders who will fight for the national sovereignty of their country, you will have more Alexander Lukashenko. So once again, I want to take my hat off to Alexander Lukashenko and congratulate him on his victory, regardless how you feel about him. It's going to be interesting. Do you have a sense, fam, that he will run again, or was this his last time out?
I'm not entirely sure if he's answered that, to be honest. I thought he said this may be his last, but honestly, I think as long as he's still going like Putin, he should
He's
stay.
70 years old. He's 70.
So Putin is about to be 71 or something like that.
And these guys are young looking compared to our 70-year-olds. Donald Trump looks like shit compared to these guys.
Yeah. And look, like there's only so much, we can provide. I mean, election observers also said that they thought the election was very simple. They thought the election was very easy to look at and say, look, like this is what happened. That's it. And it, for me, it would have been better to have American election observers because there weren't any. It was pretty much everywhere else, but not from, I think, North America. Pasta, if you recall, and the numbers that were gotten from immediately by some of the Russian media came very fast, and I'm still trying to figure out how they got those numbers very quickly, because while they were calling these numbers, I was still sitting at the polling location and they were still counting them. Yeah. So, but because they open everything at the same time, once people are done, maybe people were done right at 8, and so they started right away. Maybe that's what happened. And there were also foreigners who voted in different areas. So when you have like the people that don't live in Belarus that voted, you can have those numbers ahead of time. But I'm still trying to, that is one thing that I wasn't able to figure out yet, is like how they got these numbers so quickly.
Yeah. Maybe they just exacerbated some poll numbers, fam. Who knows?
Yeah, but for me that discredits it, because you have still people counting ballots and stuff, and you can see it in real time. So I do think that there needs to be more of some reporting that is objective and that is actually emphasizes, oh yeah, this isn't it, because it was all over the media, 87%, and so the final number is actually 86%, I believe. It's 5,136,293 votes, which comes out to 86.82% for him, and everybody else got much smaller numbers. You have a total of 5 candidates or none of the above. So, it is what it is. If the people there felt like the elections were not fair, it would be up to them to do something about it. Because again, if the United States or somebody else says something, at this point nobody's going to buy it, because the United States is completely and totally they dismiss any elections from any president that they find is a friend of their foe. So it's neither here or there. But Pasta, I don't know if you saw that the U.S. State Department had taken down the condemnation that they had about Belarus. Maybe they re-edited it and they posted it back, but it was down for a while about that. And the EU Parliament were the ones that actually fully condemned it, and Lukashenko did address them several times and saying that they were doomed, and that there was going to be peace between Russia and Ukraine, and that Europe was going to be left behind, and that they should be worried more about their own affairs than anything that's happening with Belarus. So,
yep. Well, once again, congratulations to Alexander Lukashenko on his victory. Fam was some boots on the grounds. I was supposed to be there with you. Unfortunately, I'm here dealing with family issues with mom, and I got to get to that right now. So thank you so much, guys, everybody, for joining. Make sure you like, make sure you subscribe. Help us on out here at the TruthWire. We're just not getting the numbers we used to. We've been shadow banned for quite some time. We've been demonetized, and we're going to try to get it back and fight for it. But you never know what's going to happen in the future. I can tell you this much: we have seen pure evidence of how certain channels, especially on Twitter, are getting lifted, and Elon is promoting all his cheerleaders, all the Trump cheerleaders. We have no freedom of speech, and even that whole it was calling the Restoring Freedom of Speech and Ending Federal Censorship Act, and idiots like Mike Benz was sitting there and fucking bragging about it, and it did absolutely nothing. There's no open source. There's no seeing of the algorithm. Everything's done behind closed doors. They get qualified immunity. You can't sue them. They're protected, but yet they don't have to show their homework and they can censor who they want. This is what we call narrative management. This is what they're doing, fam. And it's not going to change anytime soon. We'll be back on Friday, I think, maybe, hopefully, fam. Maddie Wengatai, 56, tip $10. Thank you so much. I think that was over on Rumble, I believe. Thank you so much. Margaret, we love you, Margaret. $10 tip over as well here. Thank you so much on the Truth Wire. We appreciate Margaret tips. Rockfin Hemkar, redacted, said Trump blocked 2 of RFK Jr.'s picks for vaccine safety. How is he going to remain popular with this and Stargate BS? Yeah, I mean, the Stargate BS is crazy. His FDA appointment was a big seed oil guy. They're not really going in the Malhad direction, ladies and gentlemen, right? It's going to be interesting. I think RFK's confirmation hearing is tomorrow. Like I said, I think Tulsi will get through, but I don't think that RFK will get through. I don't think they're going to allow RFK to get through. There'll be Republicans and Democrats alike that will join together. All the Democrats will say no. There'll be some Republicans that will say no. I don't even think that the tie that Hesgoth, whatever his name is, the defense secretary, the deeply committed Zionist who's now the Secretary of Defense. I don't know how all the MAGA people can
Pete Hegseth.
Yeah, whatever, the jerk off. I don't know how. I mean, this guy was like, we can't fight wars right because we're handcuffed. We need to take the handcuffs off. These are terrorists we're fighting. We got to be more brutal. I mean, once again, deeply committed Zionists. I can't understand how the MAGA people weren't going, wait a second, where is Douglas McGregor? Why wouldn't you give Douglas McGregor that position if you were serious about peace?
That was never going to happen. It's just hopium. These people, like, it's...
Yeah, it is. But that's a name. Remember, he tapped him at the end of his first administration to try to get everybody out of Afghanistan at the very end when it was too late. Nobody wants to talk about that he never got anybody out of Afghanistan, but they're going to go and point the finger at Joe Biden, said he messed up the pullout, right? But that's the evacuation process. But that's no hearsay. Guys, I don't know if we're going to go Friday, family. We'll try to go Friday. I'm going to be Thursday on the Homeless Left. I'll be holding it down while Matt Weinglass will be boots in the ground. But Wednesday, I will have my show, WBAI. It's a live call-in show from 4 to 5 Eastern every Wednesday. We hit a topic, and a lot of New Yorkers call on in. You can listen to it on the interwebs, and you can call on in. We'll give you the number out there if you want to join in the conversation. It's an intriguing show, going back and forth with the people, because you have a lot of leftists that listen to it. You got a couple Trumpers that listen to it. But whatever they come in with, I'm always pushing back, especially if they're playing team sports. And it's a great show. It's called Drive Time every Wednesday on WBAI from 4 to 5 p.m. We're going to get some social media accounts up so you can follow the show from either Facebook or YouTube or whatever. We'll get that coming in the woodworks. Fam, you got anything interesting coming on? Any interviews? Any places you're going after you leave Belarus?
Nothing I can talk about yet, but I will be back in Moscow for a bit. And I'll be going on some people's shows and stuff, and I look out for an article and look out for more posts on the specifics of the election as well. And I didn't get to talk about the potential the potential peace deal between Ukraine and Russia that the Trump administration and the Ukrainian media are putting out. So I'll talk more about that next time.
Yeah, we got that going on. Listen, we have Honduras this year has an election. Bolivia has an election. We'll definitely try to get out there to cover those. Fam was boots in the grounds in Belarus. I was supposed to be with her. I couldn't join it because of family things. I'll keep you updated on Mama Pasta. She's now in a rehab trying to get better. So this is a big 2 weeks for her, 3 weeks for her to see if we can get her back to moving around. It's awful what the health industry does here in America to senior citizens and, the way they treat people. I can go on and on about it. It's just a shame for what happened to my mom. But we're trying to fight through it, and we're trying to put her in the best position we can. And I hope that out there, if we can send some love to Shanda Master, who's been going through an illness, my good friend Ronnie Rose, who's been fighting cancer. Man, it's tough out there, but we love you. We're sending you good thoughts and prayers. Good luck. Please, we love you. We love you. Oz, Amber, everybody over at Roar Media. You're always in our thoughts and our hearts and our prayers. That's it for today for the Truth Wire. 2 hours and 22 minutes, fam. It was a short show. Fiorella, boots on the ground. Look for the articles. See you Wednesday. See you Thursday. See you perhaps Friday. See you all the time. It's the Truth Wire. It's time to dip out of here. Thank you so much. We love you all. Thank you, CheeseSlice on the ones and twos. We'll see you soon.
Bye.